Sadly, there's nothing the Animorphs can do, and Visitor 4 uses the time matrix off-screen and dumps everyone into the Atlantic Ocean in 1805 for the Battle of Trafalgar, in which the outnumbered British Royal Navy took on and defeated Napoleon's combined French/Spanish fleet off the coast of Spain. Incidentally, this was the only battle I hadn't heard of when I first read this book. With this third battle presented to us, the themes and ideas of this book are starting to become clear, though it might go over a lot of heads if you're not familiar with the historical events presented. Thank God for the age of Wikipedia. See, each of these battles involved a much smaller and seemingly disorganized group overcoming a far more powerful force. Every battle presented is a parallel to that of the Animorphs' conflict with the Yeerks. Henry V implemented a new form of bow to give him an advantage over the French, much in the same way the Animorphs used their morphing powers to gain an advantage over the Yeerks. George Washington and his forces used a lot of guerrilla tactics against an invading force. The Battle of Trafalgar was won because Horatio Nelson managed to devise new naval war strategies on the fly. It all fits together remarkably well. Visitor 4 is naturally trying to change the tide so that the larger force, the stand-in for the Yeerks, come out on top. Jake and George Washington are killed in the same volley, and it brings the acts conflicted about killing the officer thing into a new light. But the question we're left is, what does all of this mean to us and to the series? For all these parallels, it doesn't really seem to be saying much more than, war is bad, which as far as messages go is right up there with be nice to people and love is a thing in terms of face-palming simplicity. Though I suppose it's good to be reminded of that every once in a while, especially in the 90s, where the only war kids of the decade were familiar with was Desert Storm, considered by many to be the cleanest military operation in history. If these books had come out now, after the Iraq debacle, or say during the 70s after the horrors of Vietnam, a much deeper and complex examination would have been in order. Still, this is a case of the whole being less than its parts, and the parallels effectively end after this. Again, the surviving Animorphs are scattered, Cassie nearly catatonic in the ocean in Dolphin Morph. Axe and Marco find themselves on one of the ships and spots Visitor 3 setting up barrels of gunpowder to blow the thing to Kingdom Come. Marco chases him around in Gorilla Morph while the battle breaks out, soon joined by Rachel in Chimpanzee Morph. However, while chasing Visitor 4 up the mast, a stray cannonball hits Rachel and blows her in half. Wowzers, the team is getting brutalized today. Well, Visitor 4 lights the gunpowder, and the ship explodes, and the Animorphs make another time jump. This time they end up at Princeton University around 1932. Tobias morphs human and gets a hold of a history book, where he learns that the area that was once the United States is still under British rule, and that Britain was eventually conquered by Napoleon. An alternative timeline where the French end up on top. That's how you know it's fiction. But tish. To their credit, the Animorphs do entertain the idea that just because the United States didn't happen doesn't automatically mean things are bad off. The country could have just as many freedoms and comforts as it did before under the old name. They've already changed enough of what Visitor 4 originally did to the timeline so that what we saw at the beginning of the book didn't happen. So this all requires some investigation. But what could Visitor 4 possibly want at Princeton? Cassie arrives, still in Dolphin Morph, and has to demorph in front of a handful of students that happen to be walking by. "How'd you do that?" the man with the southern accent demanded. And then, like some vile punctuation, he added a word I won't repeat. It was like a slap. I couldn't answer. I just gaped. "What did you call her?" Tobias asked. The student shoved Tobias hard against his chest and sent him sprawling back. "I'm not addressing you, little boy. I'm talking to this creature here." He grabbed me by the shoulder and shook me. "Speak up when a white man asks you a question." "Hey, this isn't Alabama, Davis," the short student protested. Davis ignored him. "Don't tell me how to deal with colored, freedman. Most likely this is some kind of runaway slave." I shot a glance at Tobias. In his human morph he could do little, and he'd have to pass through his hawk form before getting to what Marco would call serious firepower. But that was okay. This little battle was all mine. I didn't want any help. "You don't like black people, Mr. Davis?" I said pleasantly. "No problem. I can turn white. Watch me." And in what is considered Cassie's most badass scene in the entire series, she proceeds to morph a polar bear and bitch slaps the racist asshole till he's crying in the fetal position. That's when Rachel pops up, alive and in one piece. Well, as always, the Elemist is really good at these loopholes, so when he agreed that one Animorph would die, he made it so that all the other Animorphs are effectively immortal until Visitor 4 is stopped. The Animorphs learned that Visor 4 was bouncing around the place, asking about Albert Einstein, but it seems that in this altered timeline, Einstein never made it to the States. See, I keep telling you people, when you're trying to fix events in history, you have to go backwards. First stop 9/11, then stop the Challenger explosion, then you save John Lennon, then you stop Vietnam, then you save Martin Luther King and the Kennedys, and then you kill Hitler, and so on until you're satisfied. Then you return to the present day to see how things turned out. If you move up the timeline, you're just going to get uncoordinated and lost. I really should write a time travel manual for these amateurs. Well, Visor 4 screwed up, so it's time for time shift, and the Animorphs end up dumped off at Normandy on the 6th of June, 1944. Yep, it's D-Day, which certainly doesn't play into the whole Animorphs parallel thing. Instead, it plays into the whole, hey, Saving Private Ryan came out last year, and everyone was talking about the Normandy landing scene and how intense that was. Why don't we do that exact same thing in our book thing? Really, if you would just remove the Animorph characters from it, this part of the book almost seems like a novelization of that scene from the film, right down to some of the action beats and set pieces, like the soldiers getting mowed down while trying to leave their boats. I'm sure this is also accurate to the real D-Day, but I don't think this would have played out like this if Saving Private Ryan hadn't been a big deal. Rachel gives Axe a history lesson, and he doesn't take it too well. Humans. I wondered, not for the first time, but now with renewed intensity, whether the Yeerks had any notion of the species they proposed to conquer. Humans seem to exist across too broad a spectrum to even be considered a single species. The same species that spawned my friends, Jake, Cassie, Marco, Rachel, my Shorm and nephew, Tobias, seemed to revel in mutual slaughter and sank to depths no Yeerk would sink to. Depths of depraved brutality that would be unimaginable to an Andalite. Even humans, I began. I stopped myself. I should not insult humans. This is not the time or the place. We are racing to intercept the Yeerk, to save the future, But my mind was boiling. Too much! That human warrior would stand against human warrior and kill. That was wrong and foolish and stupid. But that humans, the species I was risking my own life to help, were capable of such a filthy, cowardly thing as the deliberate slaughter of innocents. Well, not at all like the things I had done in combat. Not at all like fighting Hork-Bajir controllers or Taxons or Hessian officers. I jerked my thoughts away from that memory, from the memory of my tailblade snapping forward. We Andalites have fought wars among ourselves in the past, but we did not kill children. It is not possible to conceive of a greater evil than the deliberate killing of a child. Well, we didn't come up with the quantum virus, so suck it! Joking aside, this is a really great passage that does a great job at portraying Axe's confusion in the face of all of this. This poor kid has had his illusions of his own people shattered with their present actions and atrocities of the past, and here he is, faced with the same kind of evils from his adopted people. It's a lot better than his I don't understand meat consumption bullshit in number 28, The Experiment. Of course, he's also the second most responsible for the whole Makora thing. Oh, damn it, why do you have to make things so hard for me, Animorphs? No, I have to save all of that stuff for Tobias. Speaking of, he went to scout things out and discovered the incoming Axis troops. Only there are no Nazis, and France and Germany are allies. In fact, besides the geography and similar tactics, the Animorphs know so little about this alternate timeline that the German-France tag team might actually be the good guys and the quasi-American British forces play hot potato with newborn babies. So as the Animorphs plan to steal some grenades and Birdmorph and drop them into German tanks, there's this sense of hopelessness as a small group of superpowered immortals spin their wheels and have no bloody idea of what they're doing. To drive home the point, Tobias discovers Visor 4 is a prisoner on the France-German side of things, but more significantly, he discovers Adolf Hitler. Only Hitler isn't the leader of the Nazi party, but a low-ranking driver. And you have no idea how long I've wanted to do one of these. What? Oh, come on, I wanted to do a downfall video. I never got to do a downfall video. I see them all the time. Why are you blocking my downfall? Oh, fuck it.